Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Life Church. Good to see you out there. It lights my eyes. I can see some of you out there. Good morning. Yeah. My name is Jim, and I'm happy to be able to lead along with Deb and Zach this morning. And I just want to encourage everyone that's here. If you want to stand with us, if you're willing and able. This week, I don't know what's going on with everyone else, but I know with us, we've got our kids are gearing up for school, getting ready to start. I know that a number of people are probably in the same situation, but even for those that aren't, I know that this, like other times, can be busy and hectic. And I want you to encourage you to join with me. I know that it's helpful when life can be crazy and hectic to take a breath together before we worship. And just kind of center ourselves kind of physically and mentally and emotionally, and just kind of clear things out and be ready to worship together. So if you are willing and able, if you want to take a deep breath in and out with me. And if you can stand with us, we're going to start this morning with Brother. Forgiveness is the garment of our courage, the power to make the peace we long to know. Open up our eyes to see the wounds that bind all of humankind. May our above the fear. Can we learn to not see the need? Can we share humanity? I can see another day come. Broken people, we can be ever rise above the pain? Can we learn another way? Forgive as you forgave. I can see another day come. Broken people, we can be made whole. We can be made whole. We can be made whole. As we lay down our weapons, open up our hearts. Love is breaking us, love remaking us. Come heal now, take away the blindness, so we can see as we were meant to see. I feel like devastating darkness, but I can see another day come. I can see another day come. Broken people, we can be made whole. We can be made whole. We can be made whole. As we lay down our weapons, open up our hearts. Love is breaking us, love remaking us. Will we ever rise? Will we ever rise? When you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and the depths of the river shall not overwhelm. When you walk through the fire, you'll not be burned. I am the Lord. I am the Lord, and there is nothing to fear, nothing to fear. There is nothing to fear, nothing to fear, for I am with you always. In the depths of your sorrow, I wept beside you. When you walked through the shadow, I drew you near. Yesterday, today, tomorrow, always the same. I am the Lord. I am the Lord, and there is nothing to fear, nothing to fear. There is nothing to fear, nothing to fear, for I am with you always. And there is nothing to fear, nothing to fear. There is nothing to fear, nothing to fear, for I am with you always. What can separate you from my perfect love? What can separate you from my God, this morning, just want to take a minute and thank you that we have a place to go to when we do fear, and we have both others that we can lean on as well as you, and we thank you for that. We thank you for the chance to gather this morning and to sing together. Amen.
Hello? Okay, there we go. Thank you, band. Good morning, Life Church. It's great to see everyone this morning. My name is Garnet Sophilis, and I am so happy that you're here with us today. If you showed up today believing in God and church and faith, and those are things that ground you, you're welcome. If you joined us today with some hesitation and some nervousness, wondering if there's anything here for you today, you're also welcome. You're welcome with your questions, your doubts, your hopes, your curiosities. Whatever brought you here to Life Church today, we're so glad you're here. I'd like everyone to take a minute to fill out the digital connection card. That can be found on the Life Church app on your smartphone. If you take a look up on the screen, search for Life Church Lancaster. If you don't have the app, you can download it. And just check in, let us know you're here. If you have any prayer requests, anything you need to communicate with us, that's a great place to do that. And we welcome your feedback, so thank you for that. For those of you that invest financially at Life Church, we are so thankful for your generosity. We could not do what we do week in and week out without your donations. If you would like to give today, you can go to that app that I just referenced, and there's a place on there where you can make a donation. We also have boxes in the back of the sanctuary where you can physically make a donation if you'd like. And now I have lots of announcements for you guys, so strap in. This coming Saturday, August 26th, we are hosting our final Life Church hike. So if you haven't gotten a chance to do that yet, the weather's been great. It's supposed to be nice this weekend. Please check that out. More details can be found in the app. It's a great opportunity to get to know fellow Life Church members, to get out in nature. So we encourage you to pack a lunch and to join us, but please RSVP on the app so that we can look for you. If you volunteer in any capacity here at Life Church, we want to make sure that you're attending here with us 1 week from today, next Sunday. That is our all volunteer gathering. That is going to happen right after church. If you have kids, that's okay. Childcare is going to be provided. We're going to have snacks and games and some important information that we want to be sure to share with all of our volunteers. And again, we need you to RSVP in the app so that we know to expect you. After our exciting volunteer training wraps up, we are going to get ready to have our fall kickoff. But before that, we're taking off. Sorry, friends. Messed up there. Kind of jumped ahead. So next Sunday, we're doing the all-volunteer training after church. Stick around for that if you're a volunteer. But then the Sunday after that is Labor Day. And we want everyone to take a rest and be with their family and friends and just take a little downtime for self-care. So please mark on your calendar, do not come here on Sunday, January 3rd, or you won't be able to get in. So we want you to take that day off. And then after that, the next weekend, so the weekend after Labor Day, we are going to have our fall kickoff. So please mark your calendar for Sunday, September 10th. We will, it's the new church year. It's a super exciting day. All of our kids' programming will begin that day. So if you have a child that's moving up, it's going to happen that day. We're going to celebrate everyone that's moving to a new class. We're going to have bounce houses out on the lawn, snacks, drinks, and we're going to celebrate after the service. So it's a Sunday you don't want to miss. We please want you to attend that Sunday. Thank you for sitting through all those announcements with me. We're so glad that you're here this morning. We hope you have a great day. And next up, I want to welcome Pastor Mindy, who's going to be sharing the third installment of our Waiting Room series here with you this morning. Thank you.
Thanks, Garnet. So I can be a somewhat impatient person sometimes. I don't know about you guys. It's not all the time, but sometimes I can be an impatient person. Recently, my family and I were watching a show. It was actually my husband Jason and my son Asher. We were watching a show, and in this show, it became apparent pretty early that someone was going to get hurt, that there was going to be an accident. It was going to be a major part of the show. Lots of foreshadowing and, the storyline. So you know that this guy is going to get hurt. So as the story is being told, you're kind of waiting for, like, when's it going to happen and where's it going to happen and what's it going to be. So as the show goes on, you kind of realize, okay, he shows up at his, like, garage. He's a mechanic, so he shows up at his garage, and you're like, oh, I bet it's going to be here. So then he's, like, walking around, all the cars are up on the lift and all the tires and all the tools, and you're, like, waiting for, like, a car to fall down on him or something to happen. It doesn't happen. So then he goes out to the yard of the garage, and there's, like, a big piece of machinery, like big claws and engines, and you're like, oh, this is going to happen now. It's going to happen now. It doesn't happen. He goes inside, back into the building, and talks to his wife, and his daughter's there. And you're like, oh, no, it's going to happen in front of his daughter. Is it going to happen? What's it going to happen? Doesn't happen. Goes back into the garage. It still doesn't happen. Goes back out again. It still doesn't happen. It goes back and forth. And I have to tell you, that is when I am a very impatient person. I'm a pretty tender-hearted person by nature, but I am literally sitting on the couch at this point with my hands covering my eyes, yelling, just hurt him already. Just hurt him. Like, just hurt him. Get it done. And it's not. It's funny because, I know how that sounds, but it's not just for the bad things. It can be for the good things too, because a couple of years ago, another TV story, my family and I, all 5 of us, were watching this really cool show about these animals who get, like, injuries, or they have genetic defects, or they're just abandoned, and people come along and find them and rescue them and give them a home, and they have this beautiful connection. But then this guy comes in, and he can build a prosthetic for the animal, whatever the defect is or the injury was. He can build them a leg or straighten something out for them and make it so the animals have a second chance at life. And, like, it's beautiful. They totally tug on all your heartstrings, and it's all beautiful, emotional. It's the first show we're watching, and I kid you not, all 5 of us were really into the show. It was about a pony, and it was this cute little mini pony, and it was so dear. It was so sweet, and so they make the prosthetic, right? And you get to pick, like, the color of covering that goes on the prosthetic, and it's like this whole, like, really personal process. But once you finish the prosthetic, it's not like you just give it to the animal and go. You present it to the animal, and then you have to see if the animal will let you put it on, and then you have to see if it fits and if it works, and if the animal will take to it and use it. So for this particular episode, we were watching, and they get the prosthetic, and then it's there, and you're like, oh, now they're going to put it on the pony. And so it's done, and then they go back, and we're still talking about the pony some more, and they don't actually take the prosthetic, and we're like, help the pony out, like, show us what's going to happen here. And it's a 30-minute show, right? It's going to work. It'd be a terrible show if it didn't work. So it's not even about not knowing that it's going to work, but they're done with the prosthetic, and you're just waiting, and finally you think it's going to happen, and they, like, cut to commercial break, and you're like, oh, my goodness. Okay, so then the commercial's over, and then they come back, and they start recapping the show. It's been like 15 minutes. What do you have to recap? They're recapping the show, and in that instance, my family quotes me still because I was yelling at the TV, show me the pony! Show me the pony! I want to see the pony! Like, sometimes it's really hard for me to wait for the story to unfold. Like, I just want to know. I want to get to the end. Do you ever have a hard time waiting for a story to unfold, surrendering to the time that it takes for something to happen, the process, the timing? I have some friends, and some of you might do this. I'm curious. Raise your hand if you're brave enough to admit it. But some of my friends will start a book, and they'll read the beginning, and then they skip to the end. And they read the end, and then they go back and read the middle. Anybody brave enough to say they do that? A few heads vehemently saying, no, I do not do that. Yeah, I have several friends who do that. It can be hard to wait for a story to unfold, for the process to take the time that it needs to take. And sometimes it's no big deal. Like, it's really not a big deal to wait to see the pony or how the guy gets injured or, reading a book. Sometimes it's no big deal. You just need to do it. But other times, we're waiting for really hard and important and big things, like healing, or like if you have a relational rift with someone, if something falls apart. I know sometimes it can be so hard in that waiting time where you're waiting for the story of your hoped for reconciliation to happen. You have to just wait for that story to unfold. Or maybe you're waiting for a project on your house or for a repair on your car, something that you use regularly at your business or in your life, and you just have to wait. You have to order the trusses for the roof to repair something, or order the part for your car, and it's hard to wait. It's hard to wait for the process to happen, for the story to unfold. Or a business deal. How about this? You've been working a business deal with someone for 6, 12, 18 months, and you just want to close the deal and move on. You want that to be done and permanent and secure, and you just want to move on. Sometimes it's tricky. It's hard because giving things the time they need to unfold is a big part of waiting. Giving things the time that they need to unfold is a big part of waiting. And that's not always easy. There's like a surrendering to, okay, I can't do anything. I can't push it. I can't make it go any faster. It's giving things the time they need is a big part of waiting. And the fact is, things take time, don't they? Everything takes time. Even if you come home from work ravenously hungry, do you ever do this? And there's a dinner you want to make, you're like, I'm not going to take the time to make that. Like, I don't want to do that. But you still have to eat, and it still takes time to figure out, where am I going to order? What am I going to order? Do I have to wait for them to bring it to my table, or are we going to pick it up? Everything takes time. And sometimes, while we're waiting, it's not possible to jump forward and read the end of the story and come back. You just have to wait, and you just have to hold that space, the space that's needed for things to unfold in the right time. So this morning, we're going to look at things that the church might be waiting for, and we're going to ask a question. We're going to ask the question, what might be unfolding for the church? And we're going to do it in 3 categories. We're going to talk about waiting in the church. And I have that C underlined, the capital church, I might say the big C church. That's the collective of all the churches together, the worldwide church. So we're going to talk about waiting in church as a whole across the world. We're going to talk about waiting in our church, what's happening here at Life Church, and we're also going to talk about waiting in our lives, because as individuals, we are the people who make up the church. And we're going to ask, what might be unfolding here, and what might we just have to need, or what might we just have to hold space for while this story continues to unfold? So let's jump in. So the first thing is waiting in the church and what's unfolding for the church as a whole, the big C church. When you think about how people talk about the church right now, I don't think you need to tell me that it's quite different than it was 20 years ago. 20 years ago, I think we're largely talking about the church as like a very American thing, like the moral compass of our country. Most people went to church or were interested in church, and it had a generally positive perception by a majority of people. People felt differently about the church then than they do now. The church, I think, there's going through a really huge shift. I think today you hear more things about churches being judgmental, churches being cold, divisive, people fighting. You hear a lot about Christian nationalism, about buckling down and getting more conservative, and we're going through a shift. And I can't talk about a church, as the Big C Church, going through a shift without bringing up Phyllis Tickle. Some of you have heard me talk about her before. She's an author who wrote The Great Emergence, I think. I did not write that down. Should have double-checked that. I think it's The Great Emergence. But she talks about the church going through these big shifts. And she's the one who coined the language around that of rummage sale. So she suggests, what her theory is that about every 500 years, the church as a whole goes through a really big shift. She calls it a rummage sale. And in that rummage sale, they get rid of the things that are no longer serving them. They kind of throw out the stuff that doesn't work, they adjust things, and they set up for the next season. So 500 years previous to now was the Great Reformation. At that point in time, you have Martin Luther, who's nailing the 95 Theses to the door, and the big thing is, can people have contact with God without the church? Where does God sit, or where does the Pope sit? How can people communicate with God without the church? And how are we going to navigate that? 500 years prior to the Great Reformation was the Great Schism. And at that point, there was a battle between the leader of Constantinople and the leader of Rome. And they were trying to decide who has control of the church. What language are we going to use in our services? What elements are we going to use for communion? And 500 years before that, and I will say each time we jump back 500 years, the things they're arguing about are harder and harder for us to understand. But the things that each group of people are debating and working through are sacred things to them. So 500 years before the Great Schism, you have the fall of Rome and Gregory the Great. And at that time, they were very, very concerned about how they talked about Mary. Was she really the mother of Jesus? And what about Jesus? Was it two beings in one body? How do we handle the humanity of Jesus? Those things were sacred. Both all three, during the Great Reformation, the Great Schism, and the fall of Rome, all of those questions that the church was asking were huge. They were huge to them and sacred, and it was all being disrupted. Phyllis says that when these shifts happen, what's happening in your economy, what's happening in your political world, what's happening socially, it's like everything kind of bubbles up until you can't take it anymore, and then it kind of spills over, which honestly it's really descriptive of what we've been going through here in our 500-year mark. Things have just kind of bubbled to the top. For a while it's divorce and slavery and racism and LGBTQ inclusion and social justice issues. Things have bubbled to the top, and we are in a shift. We are changing. A quote for you here from Phyllis. It's kind of a long one, so hang with me. I'm going to read it, and then we'll talk about it. But she's talking in this quote about what it's like to kind of go through this shift. She says, when Christians despair of the upheavals and the reformations that have been the history of our faith, or when the faithful resist, as so many do just now, the presence of another time of reconfiguration with its inevitable pain, we would do well to remember that not only are we in the hinge of a 500-year period, but we are also the direct product of one. She's saying when these reformations of the church happen, and when we find ourselves resisting those changes because they're painful, because they are, you find security and belonging and stability in your church and in what you were raised in so many times. And when that starts shifting, it is painful. She says, when that happens, we would do well to remember that not only are we shifting in a potentially big way, but we are also shifting as the direct product of a shift that happened many years ago. What's so normal and stable for us was hugely destabilizing for people who shifted previous to us. She says it's especially important to remember that no standing form of organized Christian faith has ever been destroyed by one of our semi-millennial eruptions. Instead, each simply has lost hegemony or pride of place to the new and not yet organized form that was birthing. She's just saying, look, it hasn't been destroyed. The church has maintained its existence. It has just lost the way that it comes together. It's lost its prominence in society. It may have lost its good name. It's lost that. And what's kind of hard is that the not yet organized new form is still being birthed. It's not here yet. It's not here yet. So when we ask the question, what might be unfolding for the Big C church, for the church as a whole, these are some of the things that kind of just come to my mind. They are that like the church is just unfolding a new iteration. It's just not clear yet. Some things are the same as they used to be. Some things are completely not here anymore. And other things are just still in the beginning phases of what they're going to be. The old is definitely continuing to lose prominence, at least in our country. The way people talk and think about church, the old way is continuing to lose prominence. The new has not solidified, but I'm hopeful, and I feel like we're experiencing more good fruit coming from some of the new conversations we're having. More inclusion of minorities, more interest in ways that we can help one another, less shame. I came across a quote probably a couple years ago on a podcast, a guy by the name of Ryan Berg. And this is what he said about church, and it totally intrigued me when I heard him. He said, in church, the value does not come from the vertical, but it comes from the horizontal. We forget that all the time, he said. He said, we should think about religion sociologically, not theologically. And when I heard him say that, I wasn't really sure what I thought about that. I sat with it for a while. I think we've talked about it before here in church. But I have to say, that has proven very true for us and our community. Because we, I think, are part of an unfolding of a Christian church with more value on the horizontal than the vertical. We have more questions, but we also have more belonging. So let's turn the dial just a little bit and go to the next question. What's unfolding for Life Church? And we're going to kind of talk about this a little bit more. So what's unfolding in Life Church for Life Church? I think that we have seen a shift from a church that's been primarily and maybe even solely centered on theology, on specific theological views, on one approach to Scripture. We've shifted from that specific black and white view to being more centered on creating a safe space for us to journey, for us to be curious, for us to explore, for us to listen to one another and ask, how is Jesus showing up in these spaces? And to be honest about where we are. We've moved from belonging because we believe to belonging because we exist, because we are children of God. We no longer get a seat at the table because we've signed off on a specific doctrinal statement or had specific beliefs about the way we approach the Bible and what things have to mean about God. But we get a seat because we're all welcome on the journey. We're children of God and we belong, and so we get a seat. So what's unfolding for us at Life Church? I think we're still asking a lot of questions. What do these things mean, these things I used to believe, these questions that I have now, and how do we have conversations in church that are really honest, that are really brave? Because now, when you think something, you have the opportunity to bring it out, even if you're not sure if everybody else believes the same thing. And that requires you to be brave. That requires you to have courage to say, I have a question about this idea. And then the people who hear, they have to learn how to listen and how to hold space for that person. I think we're learning how not to fix each other, how not to be answer people for each other, but to hold space for each other, to be curious and to be learning and to be seeking God together, even if our journeys look a little different. We're learning to be really honest about them, and when we rub each other the wrong way, or when someone's question scares us or freaks us out, or someone says they believe something and we're like, really? Okay. We're learning how to hold that space and let that story unfold and to journey beside one another and say, I don't know, but I hear you and I see you and I want to be curious with you as we journey and learn to follow Jesus. So let's turn the dial one more time, just get a little more focused and think about what's unfolding in our individual lives. Because the church is people. It's made up of people. And what's unfolding in our lives is all going to be unique and different because we all have unique lives. But there's an overlap, like the Venn diagram. There's always overlap of what we're going through. But when I talk with you and listen to you, I hear a few things that often rise to the top. And one of the big things that's unfolding in our lives is a story of grief, a story of mourning, things that we've lost. There's a loss of stability, and I know a lot of us feel really sad about that. It's hard to live in a space that doesn't feel as solid and clear and binary and black and white. So there's been grief over loss of stability and loss of surety, discomfort with not being sure what you think about a lot of things, and just kind of having to live in that or raise children in that space. More questions. The story unfolding for us as individuals is it seems like one question leads to another question, which just leads to more and more questions. But also I see unfolding in our lives an expanded way to see God. Options for things we didn't know there were options for. More theological perspectives on the cross. More theological perspectives on how to view the text and how to read and how to study. And also those things are simultaneously joyful for some of us and overwhelming for others. Some of us are like, bring the new ideas. I know who some of you are. Bring the new ideas. I want to play with them. Tell me more. I love it. Let's talk about every possible option ever. And there are some of you who are like, just don't tell me one more new thing, because I already can't even process all the things that are happening in the world around me. I'm overwhelmed. So those are some of the stories that are unfolding. There's more space to show up and ask questions and breathe. There's also more gray. There might be more freedom. I hope there's more freedom. I think there's less shame. I recently came across a conversation between Brian McLaren and David Wilcox. David Wilcox is a musician, if you have not heard of him before. And they have this, I'm going to play it for you here in a minute. They have this beautiful, really organic and natural conversation about being present to one another in your moment of need, having conversations with one another and being aware of what story is unfolding in your life and in the person that you're talking to. So I'm going to play this for you. It's just shy of 5 minutes, so you know what to expect, and then I'll come back up.
A lot of times when I'm talking with somebody and they speak something about where they're at and what they're up against, there's something in the phrases that they use that reminds me of some beautiful discovery that I made, that I'd written down, and I felt so enlightened about it. And so I have this idea like, oh, wait, I have something, and I come ready to sort of spill out my beautiful conclusion. And there's this weird thing that happens where I'll start to speak and I just kind of get this thing in my chest that kind of says, does it serve? And sometimes I will have to just kind of wait. It's almost as if, do I have permission? Like, is this what you would speak if I were to surrender this mouth and this voice and be a vehicle for what you would speak? You know, is this it? And most of the time it's like, no. And so the times when I'm answering a question better, I can hear it when I listen back and it's recorded on tape, because my clever voice is all fast and up and enlightening. And then there's this other voice that happens where it's as if instead of residing right here in my ideas and I can't wait to get them to you, I kind of come back and it's as if I'm waiting. And then there's this other thing that happens where how can I serve what you're going through? It's as if instead of residing in my ideas, I'm reaching my heart to their heart. And I'm asking to be the, I don't know how to say it, something about like they're walking from where they are to where they're going, almost as if, I don't know how to say it, but it's something like being the earth for them, being the bridge, being the, I don't know. That sounds too presumptuous, but it's something about letting myself feel what they're feeling letting myself hold this possibility of, yes, this is where we are, it's no accident, and yes, this is what God is making in your life, and yes, there's a sacredness to this. And so let's not try and come in with our existing ideas to fix something that we're actually being called to on purpose to take us to where we haven't been yet. So that's the place of asking, what is God making here? Yeah, that's a fun place to be.
It's really funny because I was about to say exactly your first point. I often have the experience of being in a conversation where people say something, and I've got a great story or a great witty idea or whatever to add, and there are just, you realize so much of what we all do, at least what I do, is the compulsive need to throw my hat in the ring. And there is a wonderful thing of being able to pause just long enough to say, I don't really need to say that. And is it really needed? Yeah. I come from a tradition where we memorized lots and lots of Bible verses. And I'm so glad I did. And there's a verse, I think it's in Colossians, it says, let no unwholesome word proceed from your mouth, but only such a word as is suitable for edification, according to the need of the moment, that it will add grace to those who hear.
Yeah. That edits any script, doesn't it? And that's out, and that's out, and that's out.
That's right, between unwholesome, according to the need of the moment, and adding grace.
Yeah.
Talk about a contagious laugh, right? I love it. But what they're talking about is holding space for the stories that are unfolding in each other's life. So quick we want to rush in, and our brains are made to want to resolve, and we want to rush in and clarify and clear it up and give solid ground. But what if we can hold space for each other and for the stories that are unfolding in each other's lives? And Ephesians 4:29 is the verse he referenced about, let no evil or unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what's good for building up, for edifying each other as there is need, so that your words may give grace to those who hear. So what's unfolding for us as individuals, and then as Life Church, and also as a church as a whole, is really sacred. And sometimes it's hard to wait to see, what is this going to be? What's going to happen? Where am I going to land? What am I going to think? What's this going to look like? In those moments, build one another up. Show up for each other and say things that encourage each other, and give so much grace, so much space, because it's really hard to not know where you're at. It's hard to not know where you're going to land. And the story of where the church is going to be is still very much unfolding. And that can be really hard. So build each other up, encourage one another while we're waiting to see the stories that unfold. This morning, I want to offer to you one more video. This one's about 2 minutes long, and I'll be honest, I've tried to figure out exactly what if I'm trying to say something with the video or what, and I can't really quite figure it out. All I know is that when I saw it, it's about waiting, and it deeply moved me. There's a fig tree in this video, and I was like, well, maybe we are each like a fig tree. Maybe the fig tree represents us, or maybe the fig tree represents the church as a whole, or maybe it's a theology, and I don't know. I don't know what the fig tree is supposed to represent. You can decide for yourselves. But I want to play it for you because there's something really beautiful in these seasons where we find ourselves feeling kind of barren, kind of like we can't clarify everything and give the answers, or kind of like we're not bearing a lot of fruit, or we're not producing a lot, or not able to be sure and solid and making progress. There's something really beautiful about the nurturing care that's represented in this. So I offer this to you this morning, and I hope it is. I hope it's encouraging. So you can go ahead and play that.
A fig tree is forsaken, abandoned because it does not yield what was intended by its owner, waiting bare without produce, perhaps broken and diseased, left unwanted. But the rabbi waits for the plant to bear fruit, resisting to cut it down just yet, wanting to see what is to come, fertilizing the roots in hopes for a plentiful season, a witness of what all is to come, a world of peace and abundance, a world of fullness and fertility, a patient farmer tending to his garden, watering the soil of the soul, restoring the brokenness of the body, so that we might sprout the goodness that is in store, biding his time until he could reap not death, but life, the harvest of the kingdom to come, of healing and wholeness, of togetherness and connection, the branches reaching out to gather us all, to gather us as one.
Waiting can be really hard, but it can also be really hopeful. And when things seem uncertain or dark or unstable or overwhelming, the Spirit of God is still moving, tending to the tree, tending to the souls of his people, her people, their people. So as we wait, I hope that we can find hope and encourage one another to see how God has shown up for us in the past and how God has shown up for people in the past, the stories in the text and the stories we tell one another. And that as we go through this period of a story unfolding, where sometimes it feels a little despairing or a little unclear, I hope that we can remember together and remind one another of the ways God has shown up in the past, and that we can encourage and build up one another through these times, all the while giving each other just mountains and mountains and mountains of grace. Let's pray. God, thank you so much for Life Church. Thank you for each of the people who come in and out of this space and are in this community. Thank you for the way that you are present with us as individuals and as a whole. We continue to ask you for wisdom. Pray that you'd give us discernment. Help us to continue to receive your love in ways that heal us and grow us. And I pray that we might continue to learn how to share that love with one another. Thank you that you continue to be with us through times of bearing great fruit and hopefulness and joy, and also through times where it's a little less clear of what's happening, or maybe we're a little impatient with the speed at which the story is unfolding. Thank you for being with us, for knowing us, for recognizing our humanity, and for journeying with us. It's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen.
If you're willing and able to stand with us, and we sing Garden. soften the soil, tend now the scars. Open, your love breaks us open, resurrects a garden, a garden. Love you said, poured out like wine, broken like bread. Waken us, enliven our minds, unearth the dead. Rend this heart of stone and mend it into flesh. Let your love bring me life. Yield this heart in earth until a goddess fills the ground, brings us back to life, to life. Open, your love breaks us open, resurrects a garden, a garden. Open, your love breaks us open, resurrects a garden, a garden. Love is bringing me life, it's bringing me life. Love is bringing me life, it's bringing me life. Love is bringing me life, it's bringing me to life. Love is bringing me life, it's bringing me life. Love is bringing me life, it's bringing me life. Love is bringing me to life, it's bringing me life. Open, your love breaks us open, resurrects a garden, a garden.
Thanks so much for joining us this week. Don't forget, next week, if you volunteer here in any capacity, RSVP on the app and show up for a volunteer gathering. Also, somebody took great pictures and videos last year to show you all this year. I can't find them. If you happen to have them, send them to me. Because we had a great time singing, laughing, dancing, and I wanted to show you how much fun we have. Anyway, I'll take more this year and show you. But RSVP on the app so we can count, get a good head count, make sure we have enough snacks. And don't forget, after that, it's our Rest Sunday. Volunteers and everybody is just really busy in this season preparing for what's coming next. So we're going to take off that Labor Day Sunday and then the fall kickoff after that, which is super fun. Bounce houses. We got a bigger one than last year. So that'll be fun. And lots of snacks. So save the date for that, September 10th. So good to be with you this morning. I hope you have a wonderful week, and be well. Oh, thank you. Good, I'm so glad.
I'm like, wow, this people that think the way that me, my mom thinks.